Welcome back, everyone, to the Cannabis Heals Me podcast. This is your tardy, ever late host, Rachel Kennerly. We are recording once again from the Storybook Inn Studios. I apologize for getting this episode out late. I believe I mentioned in the last couple of episodes I was out of town for vacation with my sister-in-law. I had a wonderful time in Santa Clara, Texas. And just with the holidays and being out of town, just couldn't get an interview scheduled. Fortunately, today's guest, who I'll introduce in just a few moments, was able to sit down and chat with me on Sunday, but I made the decision not to spend all of Sunday afternoon out in my studio/office editing the podcast for Monday morning because I hadn't seen my son and my husband all week, and I wanted to spend time with them before we got into the routine of the work week. So today's episode is a little late, and I apologize for that, but family comes first. Go ahead, while you're sitting here listening to the podcast, and hit the subscribe button so that you won't ever miss an episode when it comes out. I'd also ask, while you're over there subscribing and piddling around on Apple Podcasts or Google Play or whatever app you're using to listen to the show, if you'd go ahead and give us a rating or a review on that podcast catcher, because what that does is it helps us with the analytics, and it'll actually recommend our podcast to other people when enough people give us reviews or ratings. So would very much appreciate you doing that. And if you leave a review, I will read that review on air. I've done that in the past with one of our other reviews that came in. So if you leave a review, I'll be happy to read it on air, unless you email me, podcast@cannabishealsme.com, and tell me, hey, don't read it, then I won't. So I want to respect your privacy, even though you are publicly putting a review out there for everyone to read. But if you don't want me to read it online, I will comply with your request happily. Our guest today is Chris Moe, or some of you may know him better as Uncle Grumpy, especially if you're from Oklahoma. Chris is an outspoken advocate for the legalization of medical marijuana in Oklahoma, and was influential in trying to get 788 passed. And what I didn't know until just recently is that he actually had a personal experience with medical cannabis. So I wanted to have him come on the show and talk about that, and then also talk a little bit more about his advocacy work and give us an update of the status of legal cannabis in Oklahoma now that they're a year into legal medical cannabis. Well, thanks again, everybody, for coming back to the Cannabis Heals Me podcast. I'm joined today by Chris Moe, a.k.a. Uncle Grumpy, and he's here to tell us his personal story of his medical cannabis use and kind of maybe how he got started in marijuana activism. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I've seen some of your shows, but I don't watch all of them. I apologize for that. I didn't realize that you had a story with medicinal cannabis until I read an article in Herbage about you. So I wanted to have you come on and talk to us about your personal story with medical cannabis. And then I'd also love to hear kind of how you got involved in activism in Oklahoma.
Okay. Well, like most people, I've used cannabis off and on most of my life. I started when I was too young to understand what I was doing, along with other drugs and alcohol and everything else. And, like so many others, my home life wasn't the greatest, and my escape was drugs and alcohol. And that went on and off throughout my life. And cannabis came and went too. But the difference was when the other things were involved, my life became total chaos. And bad things happened. I got arrested. Almost all were for too much alcohol and public intoxication, things like that, and other stupid stuff. And I started to realize later on in life that the only time things went normal for me was when I was was smoking cannabis, and that was it, and not drinking the alcohol or using any of the other drugs that sometimes go along with that when you're younger, when it's all part of the things you're not supposed to do. That's say cannabis is a gateway drug. It's really not. It's just on that list of things that people say you shouldn't do. So when you're a rebellious teenager, it's one of the things you go try and do.
Yeah.
It's really a complete different thing. But so, I've I've tried multiple times throughout my life to go years without using cannabis. And I tried the pharmaceutical route. And for me, cannabis was always a solution to the mental stress that I had, the mental problems that I had. It wasn't until later in life that it was also a physical thing. At 38, I broke my back and neck at work, and that was it. I couldn't work again. I had kids, 3 babies in diapers, a wife, and was being told I was going to have surgeries off and on for the rest of my life and probably never work again. And they've been right. I've tried to work a couple times and I can't physically do it. My last surgery was just a couple years ago, and I need another one right now really bad. So it will be soon. I'll be going through it again. It's been 7 surgeries in 14 years.
Wow.
And at the height of this, because I was in a pain management program where if you touched cannabis, you would get fired. So I did not touch cannabis. So at the height of this, because of all the medications that they gave me for the pain, for the depression, for the things I was going through, again, being 38 and told I would have multiple surgeries and probably never work again while having a wife and babies. And it came to 9,855 pills a year.
Wow.
That's a lot of pills.
Yeah.
All prescribed by the doctor. I was roughly 60, 70 pounds overweight, walked with a cane for years, mostly due to the surgeries and everything else and the condition of my spine. But the pills put me at a point where I was ready to end it all. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It cost me my marriage. It cost me some time with my kids. Now that's all been corrected, but not the marriage, but the kids. But it cost me everything that mattered to me. And I was at that point where I did what so many others do, and I thought about ending it. And I had a 20 gauge shotgun at home that I could do that with. And somehow I managed to get through that day that I think lasted about a week. And I saw what was going on. And so I took my firearms and I gave them to a neighbor, and I said, I don't want to be at that point again. Keep these until I'm safe.
And this is while you're on antidepressants?
Yes. Oh yeah. I had a pill for everything. I had a pill to get up, a pill to go to sleep, a pill to get through the day, pills for pain the entire time. I mean, I had 27 pills a day.
Wow.
And that's a lot of pills. That does a lot to your mind.
Yeah.
And I saw the light, and I decided that I couldn't do that anymore. It cost me too much. And so I started smoking again, but not just a little. I started smoking all the time, and I quit all those pills cold turkey for about a month. And I smoked the entire time. And I went back to my doctor and I said, that almost killed me. I don't want to die. I'm smoking again. I no longer want to die, but I can't handle the pain. And so he put me back on some of the pain medicine. And I've stayed on some of the pain medicine since then. But none of the medicine, none of the pharmaceuticals that I was taking for my mental state, none of the antidepressants, none of the pills to go to sleep, pills to get up. I mean, I think when I knew it was the end was when they gave me a pill to counteract the effects of the pills they were giving me. That was, and I don't even remember what the name of it was, but it was to treat something that was being caused by the other medication. I mean, it was just too much. And so cannabis literally saved my life. So I went to my doctor and I made it clear to him that I wanted to live and that I didn't want to take any more pills than what was absolutely necessary. And he said, whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
Wow.
He said, I've never seen you look healthier. They watched me go from 250 pounds to about a good 180, 185. I mean, I changed everything. I suddenly had a smile on my face. I suddenly was happy. I went in there and said, hey, let's see what we can do to fix this, not what we do to make me feel less. Because that's what I wanted, was to feel less. It hurts so much. The pain, the living in chronic pain isn't even something that you could describe to somebody. Because I've tried in the past, during the first few years of this, I tried explaining to people, imagine the worst pain you could ever be in, and then it never goes away. And then you think maybe that will go away eventually, but no, it never goes away. And then it never goes away, and then it never goes away. And you just can't even, you can't fathom, you can't really fathom, unless you're in that much pain, what that's like. And so cannabis has been the one thing, aside from the pharmaceuticals, that's been able to treat this, only with good results instead of bad ones. Instead of being suicidal, I'm happy. I'm healthy. My life has gone on. I have a relationship with my kids. I have a good relationship with my ex-wife. We're all friends. Life is better now because I don't take those pharmaceuticals anymore. And the only way for me to get through the day without help in some fashion, is with cannabis. I would not be alive if it was not for this plant. So at that time, I started growing my own illegally in my closet. And I did that for a while, a few years. And a couple of years ago, I didn't really have anything to lose. I was down to the minimum amount of medication I could take, but I still couldn't work. And I had an opportunity to go to California for 30 days and spend it on a cannabis farm, learn all I could about the plant, try and make a little money while I was there. Well, I didn't make any money, but I certainly didn't make any money. But I learned a lot about the plant. And while I was there is when this is what I like to tell people, this is when I started living in flower. In fact, one of my Grumpy Gear shirts says on the back, living in flower. And it's because the cannabis plant lives in a vegetative state under this condition that it's in until that condition changes, until the atmosphere around it changes. And then it blooms these big, beautiful buds. And then it's living in flower. And I want to be a big, stinky bud. Well, that's what happened. I went to California and I spent a month on that farm. And while I was there, I realized there was 7 adults there. All 7 of us were from Oklahoma.
Oh, wow.
There was something seriously wrong with that.
Yeah.
That felt so unjust that I had to, and we had to go 1,800 miles away to relax, to be ourselves for a day without fear of our door being kicked in, our kids being taken away. I mean, it's a strange feeling when you've been in Oklahoma. Well, you're in Texas, you got it down there. It's a strange feeling. That's all I can say. So while I was there, one of those 7 adults from Oklahoma showed me 788 on his phone. I had signed the petition when it was in Muskogee earlier that year or the year before, whatever it was. I had signed a few of them. Most of us did. But I hadn't really done anything to get involved. And he showed me that on his phone. He showed me 788. And I just started thinking, and I couldn't sleep that night. And I just kept thinking, if we could make this happen in Oklahoma, all 7 of us could go home.
Yeah.
And we could live at home and be ourselves at home like everybody else wants to do. We could be at home. And so I didn't hardly sleep that night. I met him the next morning at the coffee machine at about 6:30 in the morning and said, show me that again. And he showed it to me again, and I wasn't very good with phones yet. I wasn't good. And so I found it on my phone, and I kept that page open for more than a month.
Wow.
I left that place in California 4 or 5 days later, just with this crazy idea that I would come home and find some way to help to make this happen. Because it was either that or I was moving back to California. And I was born in California, so I mean that's always an option. I mean, but I've been in Oklahoma since '79. I live in Oklahoma on purpose. I was a truck driver. I've been all over the country. I live here on purpose. I want
It's
to stay here.
beautiful there.
So living here was important to me. Making this happen here was important to me. So I came back and went to a 788 dinner, and this was just before they put it on the ballot. This was in 2017, and that was it. I decided the only thing left to do was to do voter registration drives, and because my anxiety was still so bad, my fear of talking to people was still so bad.
Really?
Yes, believe it or not. Yes, I know that.
I can't believe that at all.
I know. Most people don't. But yeah, I have a fear of crowds like you would not believe. I used to be a restaurant manager, and we had 55 employees, and I would make my assistant manager run the meeting because I couldn't handle talking to all the people at one time. I was afraid.
Wow.
I was afraid they'd all look at me, and then what would I do? And I would just freak out. But anyway, back to that in a minute. So I decided I couldn't sit at a table and convince people to come up and register. That just wasn't me. I didn't have that friendly of a face.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see that working. So I decided to do a post right here locally here in Muskogee by where I live on Facebook, but to the groups around here, telling people that I would come to your house and talk to you about 788 and help you register to vote. So I went and saw people that wouldn't get out of the house like myself, people that had social anxieties that were so bad they could only deal with one or two people at a time. And I know the feelings because this has been my life, so I understood these people. So I sat with elderly people and young people and people my own age with illnesses, and most of which, believe it or not, didn't use cannabis. They wanted to. They did it back in the 60s and 70s. The older people I sat with, but it was illegal, and they wanted to break the law. But it just seemed to them like it could work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would help them register. They hadn't voted in years or whatever, and I would take it down and turn the paperwork in, and I just started doing the videos, and one thing led to another, and I was reading. There was a bill 3468 that was going to regulate our medical marijuana program before it came out. And
What?
yeah, they were trying to pass it last session, even though the session was going to end before the vote. And that was okay. We were working with them on that. We were all on
Mm-hmm.
board with that. We needed something, a system laid out, because the governor did this. She put this during a time when she thought nobody would show up because she thought it would fail. She did not realize, they did not see us coming, and I still don't believe that they understand the wrath that they have coming for the years of oppression.
Mm-hmm.
So they tried to. 3468 was a bill that there was 3468 and 1120. 1120 only allowed you to use it if you had 5 deathbed conditions. It was written.
Oh my gosh.
It was written by or it was put forward by a senator who is a anesthesiologist. He was a senator. He lost his election for doing this one.
Yeah.
He was one of the most arrogant senators I ever had to deal with. But he really believed that he was the only one who knew how to use this as medicine, and you could only use it under his conditions, and anything else was criminal.
Mm.
And then there was 3468, which I had heard the cannabis community was behind. And so I got to reading 3468, and I thought, hey, okay, this is probably what's going to happen. And I read that, and it talked about home inspections and
wow.
and fees for home grows and other stuff. And I started calling some of the known activists in the States, and the people who had put 788 together, who I'd met during this process of doing my Facebook thing, I got to know some of these people. So I started reaching out to them and going, hey, have you guys seen this? And they said, yeah, we love it. 3468 is great. We're all for it. And I went, no, look, you've got to look at this. And I send them little clips. I send them little parts, little cutouts from it. And they'd go, oh, my God, what is that? We didn't agree to that. So I went down to the Capitol, and Norma Sapp, who's been a cannabis activist for 30 years this August, she showed me around the Capitol, and she got me a meeting with a House member that was pushing this bill. And I sat down with him, and I said, this is crazy. What are you thinking? You're not coming in my house. No one's going to want to grow because you're not coming in our houses. You'll take our kids and so on and so forth. And he said, all you're bringing me is problems. Bring me solutions. And he meant it. And so I said, all right, give me a week. And so I came home, and I had my son, who's a super smart kid. He's on his way to OU now. He's a super smart kid. He can type super fast. I dictated, and he types. And we wrote out a new section to replace the home growth section in 3468. And we worded it. We used their words. We used their type. We tried to make it look so much like theirs, only with our objectives instead of theirs, that they would just go, oh, wow, this looks good. And I came up with 3 plans. And this is what I do in every negotiation I've been to. I've always had 3 plans. The plan I go in demanding, the plan I'll throw a fit but settle for, and the worst case scenario, which is still a win that I can live with. And I went in with all 3 of these that me and my son had written out. And we only got to plan 2 before he said he was on board.
Oh, that's good.
So we got to try and fix that. And that was my first taste of how much you could affect what the legislator does. Now, 3468 died in committee because of the one who wrote 1120. Okay, battle between the House and the Senate. Long story, but they killed each other's bills over some other peeing contest, for lack of a better term. And but that was when I learned that I could affect things, that we could affect things, that people were watching my videos, that they were listening, and I started figuring out how to bridge that gap between the suits at the Capitol and the patients sitting at home. Because for me, it's never been about wanting to sit home and get high. For me, it's always been about wanting to legally be able to be as happy as everybody else without fear. For me, it requires cannabis. My life, my body, my endocannabinoid system needs this cannabis. Without it, I don't function correctly. All I wanted was to be able to function like everybody else. I figured, isn't that what everybody wants?
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah, and what's kept me going, because some say, well, 788 passed. In fact, look, I like to point this out. The beard, if you watch the show, you know how long the beard's getting.
Mm-hmm.
I cut the beard down to a 5-hour shadow when I went on this trip to California. That was the last time I cut my beard.
Oh, wow.
The beard became part of Uncle Grumpy, became part of what I do.
Now, when were you Uncle Grumpy before? Or
yes.
How did that come about?
Uncle Grumpy is a nickname. You know how bikers are. They give each other names. And the people I hang out with were trying to piss me off one day, and they're always coming up with nasty names to call you. And one day they just decided to call me Uncle Grumpy, and they just thought it would really annoy me because that's how they are. And I walked over and looked at him and said, you know what? I like that one. I'm going to stick with it. I went home, and that night I ordered a patch that said Uncle Grumpy to put on my vest.
That's awesome.
I've proudly worn that name ever since. Now, here's the thing. That was before this fight, okay? That was actually about the time I started smoking all the time, though. So it was when I got off the meds. So it all kind of runs together. And here's the thing, grumpy. An acronym, where every letter stands for something different. Grumpy, government refusal, united, many people. We said yes.
Wow.
So it just happened to fit. It just happened to be, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, I think. But look, what keeps me going is just like I said, some say that, well, you can grow at home now. That's what you wanted, because that was the home grow. I wanted that to be legal. I testified about that at the joint session, about how that was the only way I could afford mine, because I'd replaced so many opioids and so many other medications with cannabis, but I needed to grow it to be able to afford it. No dispensary was ever going to cut me a deal to make it affordable where I could get the amount that I need. So they said, well, now you can grow. Now it's passed. Why are you still fighting? Why not trim the food? Because I'm the guy, or one of the guys, I imagine others get them too, but I get phone calls every day from people who are dying,
Mm-hmm.
or aren't dying now, or are treating something that they didn't think they could treat, or are spending time with family that they thought was going to die. I can't tell you how many people. It used to be every day until noon, 7 days a week. I would spend
Wow.
just responding to these people. It's a little less now, because we have it now. But when about the time it passed, and as it's slowly gotten less and less because people have access now. I help these people find ways to get their cards and so on and so forth. Sometimes I take people RSO oil, if they really need it. Uh, Unfortunately, I can't get enough. So many people need it.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what keeps me going now. My fight is no longer about me. It was originally. I admit that. It's selfish. Now it's about the people that call me every day, the people that say that this makes a difference, that I've done something that's improved their life in some way, then it's worth it.
Well, that's great. I've enjoyed watching you and Norma down at the Capitol and kind of fighting against some of the stuff that the legislators tried to pass this past legislative session. So it was nice seeing y'all down there kind of being a bullhorn saying, hey, look what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and I've taken some grief for some of what passed, and I'm not happy with a lot of what passed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the thing is, as we talked about before, it's about the
Yeah.
money, and the fact that we've had any influence at all is drastic, considering that Norman and I go up there on nickels and dimes. I mean, a few months I went up there, it was on donations from other patients, people who were with disability like myself, people who couldn't work, people on welfare. The people who are the worst off have always given
Mm-hmm.
the most. The people who set up these businesses, the people that are raking in the dollars, have given so little in comparison. It's unreal.
Wow.
It really is. And I've gotten some grief, like I say, for the laws that passed, but nobody would give the amount of money needed to actually demand other things. Like here, we got this disposal bill.
Yeah.
This disposal bill we call the Soprano bill, because it's basically setting up the mafia for no apparent reason other than because they said they deserve a carve out. I can't seem to understand what they did to deserve carve out, but if you look at the donations to the campaigns, you can figure out what they did to deserve a carve out.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that there was drastically worse things that would have happened had we not been there. There's certain things they wouldn't even try because of our presence that no amount of money would cover. So I mean, we do make a difference, more than what some think and less than what we would like.
Well, you can only do what you can do, and the legislature's going to try and get away with as much as they can get because they, like you said earlier, they didn't want constitutional amendment passing because they don't want to lose control of it.
Right. Yeah. Which if that's what they want, I talked to some high-ranking Republicans after Sine Die when I was out on the floor getting some pictures, and one of them actually said to me, one of the staunch no people actually walked up and said, you guys could have rec if you want. Just give me 40% taxes.
Wow.
And I said, well, you're insane. That's way too high. But
Yeah,
clearly,
look what happened in California when they tried that mess.
well, but see, I didn't see that as a defeat. I saw that, and I spent the next 30 minutes speaking with that gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got done, we shook hands, agreed to work together through the summer to figure out what to do next year. I, during that 30 minutes, got him to agree that anything above 30% would exceed what it is throughout the rest of the country and make it unviable.
Mm-hmm.
So we already made movement, and all we did was say hello.
Wow, that's great, Chris.
So that's what being there does. That's what being in the right place at the right time does, even when you don't have money.
Yeah.
And you know, it's funny. People have said, have laughed at me. Some people I know, anyway, have laughed at me for the way I dress at the Capitol because I try and dress as nice as I can.
Yeah,
I'll
you look pretty good in a suit.
Hey, I'll spend my last nickel on a suit, and I'll tell you why. I will never be the most educated man in that room, and I know, and I accept that. But if I'm the best dressed guy in the room and I can get a seat at the table, I can hold my own with anybody. But I've got to get to that table. So I'll wear my suit when sessions are in and I'm at the Capitol, and I'll get a seat at that table. So when I go home, I can put on my vest and ride with my friends and be myself, because that's what needs to be done. It works.
Yeah, it does. Y'all have done good work down there and headed off a lot of stuff that they've tried to pull. Now, y'all just celebrated a year of legal cannabis or medical cannabis in Oklahoma, and I saw that you had an event planned. I was curious how that went for you.
Our event got canceled. It got flooded. We had, well, this has been like the most rain we've had in a great number of years.
Yeah.
There's so many events going on. It's not that, I mean, I'm not that worried about it. We've moved on. I ended up going to another event that weekend that some other people had in a different part of the state, where they had an actual a cup competition, which was a lot of fun. You know, it was an OG cup, is what they called it, Oklahoma grown.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. I met a lot of great people. I mean, it was so many of the patients that I talked to online that can't hardly even get out of the house even managed to make it to this thing. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah, you know, cannabis is a communal medicine.
Yeah.
It's not just an individual thing. Cannabis can heal the community. And as hippy dippy as that sounds, I just look at it like this. Again, I'm an uneducated biker dude, and I can sit down at the table now and be close personal friends with the house leader because cannabis brought us together. Now, he doesn't use cannabis, but still, it brought us together. You know, that's when we met. We had other interests that have kept us at the table together, and we've seen how cannabis can heal the community, and we work together to try and do that. So it's really a communal thing. It really is. And events like that, which was a private event, you had to have a ticket to get in. It was so people were allowed to medicate if they wanted to. It's amazing how peaceful those things are. It really is. The funniest thing, I got to tell this story. Funniest thing, I went to get a burger at the one of the food trucks that was there on Saturday, and it had been going on. It was a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday thing. And this was Saturday afternoon. I went to get a burger, and the lady, I guess, didn't know much about the cannabis community, and she starts talking. She was a super sweet lady. Her and her husband looked like an old retired couple. They were joking. They kept saying, "We just didn't know how this marijuana affects people's appetite." We were starting to pack up last night, and about 9:30, 10 o'clock, there was a line.
Oh, that's funny.
Everybody wanted ice cream, and, you know, they sold out of stuff. It was great, you know, so. And no fights, you know. It's not like a beer event where there's, you know, brawls and arrests and DUIs, and a few people got pulled over in that county. Nobody got anything more than a ticket. None of them were for cannabis. They were speeding. That's it. So law enforcement was pretty decent. It went really well. I
Well,
was
that's
happy to be
great.
part of
Yeah, that's wonderful.
it. That's what cannabis can do to the community, and this is
Yes.
one of the areas where we are getting some resistance. So, you know, we intend this summer to go around to all these towns that are putting up the most resistance and having town hall meetings where we're going to sit with not only the patients but the law enforcement, if they'll join us, and the elected officials, um, and their state representatives, which I'm hoping I'll be able to get to show up for those, and talk to them about what the laws really are. You know, we're having strange things like we had someone the other day get arrested for scales, and things like that.
Oh
So,
gosh.
little things here and there are happening, and we there's always more to the story. I know that, but we've just got to. Cannabis needs to be taken off of the table for things like reasons to search cars and things like that. It needs to be taken out of that dangerous category.
Yep, I'm with you. Well, where can folks find you if they want to watch your show?
Well, the best place would be on the OCNN, the Oklahoma Cannabis News Network, on Facebook, or my page. But I usually have too many followers and no room on there. But the OCNN is the place, or me, of course, Chris Moe. And then YouTube. If you type in Uncle Grumpy into Google, you'll get a handful of my videos. It's out there everywhere.
Okay, perfect. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on and talking to me. And everybody, y'all need to go check out Chris on YouTube and Facebook, OCNN, and keep on with the good fight, Chris.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on. If I can do anything to help you guys down there in Texas, you let me know.
Absolutely. I appreciate that.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Chris Moe, everybody. Thanks again to Chris for coming on to talk to us about his story and about his advocacy work. You guys go check out the show notes page, cannabishealsme.com/51, and you'll find links to Chris's Facebook, OCNN, and other links that we mentioned in the show. We will be back here on Thursday with an interesting episode on the U.S. government's involvement in the drug trade. I think you'll find this topic a little eye-opening. I was not aware. I'd heard rumblings and rumors that they were involved in drug trafficking, but I had no idea to what extent and for what a length of period of time it was. So come back on Thursday and check out that show. Until then, you guys have a great week.